Hi, my name is Paul Lathrop. This is Parental Involvement Resources in conjunction with Liberty University's EDUC623 course. In this professional development session, we will be discussing the parental involvement resources that are available for you as educators here at Chesterfield County as well as throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. For our presentation today, I will be going over a quick introduction of parental involvement as a whole, as well as themes in parental involvement that came up after a literature review, resources for improved parental involvement as it differs between ages, as well as concluding, just wrapping all of our concepts up and providing you as the educators with the resources you need to be successful with parental involvement in your classrooms. So the question I have for each and every one of you is, what does parental involvement look like in your classroom? We all have different stories. As an educator with a total of 4 years of formal education classroom experience in terms of 1 year in the private sector and 3 in the public sector, I've had a number of different parent situations come across my way. So I'm interested to know what different classroom parental involvement pieces look like for you. For me, I've had anything from parents that are involved and engaging, to helicopter parents, to parents that I really wish they would be more involved in their child's life. For our professional development session today, we're going to discuss how parental involvement can take on many forms. So it's not always the same based on age, it's not always the same based upon a particular student of the same age or of the same culture. We're going to discuss how not all parental involvement is equal. So how, again, as I discussed a moment ago in terms of a helicopter parent, how that may not actually attribute to success in terms of for the child, but may actually hinder the performance. We're also going to discuss briefly in terms of some studies that show that parental involvement leads to academic success with students of all ages. And also we're going to discuss how parental involvement leads to higher graduation rates by ensuring that the students understand that education is important in terms of receiving as well as getting as much as they can from it while they're in school. There are a number of themes that come up in terms of parental involvement when conducting a scholarly literature review. The importance of parental involvement is absolutely mission critical in terms of developing the students at an early age. The literature review also discusses the differences and similarities between parental involvement at elementary school, middle school, and high school levels in terms of what each of these age students needs in terms of parental involvement and how to best suit them. It also discusses academic achievement and student success beyond the classroom as the students enter society upon graduation. Another important topic that they discuss is digital citizenship in terms of making sure that the student is prepared and conducting themselves properly and ethically online. Another really important theme that emerged was student health, anything from nutrition, making sure that they understand what the food groups are and how to find nourishment successfully as opposed to improper food sources that can lead to different types of diseases and sicknesses, how to properly deal with stress, lower suicide rates, as well as sexual decision making in terms of as they come of age. And last but not least, just cognitive outcomes in terms of making sure that they are prepared from a IQ and academic point of view. In terms of the importance of parental involvement, one of the main themes that emerges is in terms of relationship building. And it's not simply just the relationship between a child and a parent, but also between the educator, the child and the parent in terms of all of those educational stakeholders coming together. One of the other big things in terms of importance of parental involvement was the development of both academic and character development, so that we're educating the child, giving them the proper role models, as well as making sure that they have the tools to be successful in terms of study skills, reading, writing, and arithmetic in the classroom. One of the things that I think is really important in terms of parental involvement is the role it plays as we enter fall of 2020 school year in terms of what parental involvement looks like after the COVID-19 pandemic. Many schools are returning to a virtual environment and relying very much so on parents and guardians to be able to step up and really help influence the child in terms of their academic progress, to make sure that if we return to the formal classroom setting, that they have everything they need to be successful and it's like they never left. Elementary school parental involvement. So this parental involvement is crucial for the development and academic success of the child. And it's very important that we start the student and the child early in terms of what education is and what it looks like and how it can be a very positive and should be a very positive experience for the child. Opportunities for parents to become involved at the elementary school level can include becoming a guest reader, as shown in this picture, reading to an elementary school class. It gives the student real stakeholdership as they can tell their classmates, this is my mom, my grandma, my dad, and just getting really excited in terms of the experience, as opposed to, oh, we're reading this book, I've already read this book, or something in terms of a negative connotation there. Parents can also become class aides, homeroom parents. My mom was one of my homeroom parents growing up and everything at our parochial school. So there's a bunch of different ways, and it just all kind of depends on what time commitment parents are able to provide. A lot of parents do work, and if none of those are options for them, simply just being a helping hand at home and helping going over, for this age group, colors and numbers and letters and things like that, just really help the child succeed in terms of the classroom. Again, at this age, we're really trying to stress the importance of education and why it's important and the structure in place for it. And there's a number of studies in the literature review that I completed that show a direct correlation to starting parental involvement heavy on at the elementary school level and students being able to find academic success later on in life. Middle school parental involvement. One of the pieces that I did in terms of this presentation was I found an article that went over 50 different studies for parental involvement at the middle school level. And in each of those studies, it was found that parental involvement had a positive impact on academic achievement. Involvement that included socializing or bidirectional communication between a child and a parent absolutely increased the academic success and the influence that parental involvement had on the child. If you think about this, at the elementary school level, a lot of the times we tell the child to do this, and we don't necessarily get into the why something is happening or how something is happening, but just do this. It's important you put on socks. It's important that you brush your teeth, right? But we don't go into necessarily the whys and the how. And at this time, students are beginning to age, they're beginning to go through changes, and they need support as they're going through those changes, both from an anatomy point of view and from a mental and behavioral point of view. So it's very important that parents become involved in middle school age children's lives and continue to do so. But again, this is very different in terms of what we experienced at the elementary school level in terms of parental involvement. High school parental involvement. Best parental involvement techniques can sometimes vary by ethnicity. So one of the studies that I found in my literature review for this presentation actually looked into which techniques best serve different ethnic groups in terms of if they were Native Americans or Black or Asian or what have you. And they found that based upon the household and how much of the culture in terms of their ethnic background was involved, sometimes the best parental involvement technique varied. So in one of the things it actually stated that with Native American students, if they don't know how to do something 100%, they don't have the confidence in it, then a lot of the times they won't speak in class for it. So just really kind of getting over some of those hurdles in terms of culture and just really making sure that the student is able to be successful in the classroom. Our biggest challenge in terms of high school parental involvement is making sure that the child is prepared for the future as an adult. So that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean from a behavior standpoint, it can mean from an academic standpoint. I think workforce readiness in terms of making sure that a child is hireable and professional is absolutely critical for this age group. Because for some of these students, as they age out and graduate high school, they're entering the workforce. Not everyone's going into college, or if they are, then within 2 to 4 years, they're coming out of college and joining the workforce. So they need to be prepared for it. And the other piece of it is a financial understanding. So I have a number of students in my 11th and 12th grade classes that have their first jobs, and when they get their paycheck, they end up going out and spending it just on randomness, on shoes or clothes or what have you, and things that they don't necessarily need, as opposed to putting it away or understanding the importance of financial planning and kind of savings and what have you. So just making sure that students are prepared from a financial point of view, understanding that. And one of the biggest things we can do is just really supporting our students through decisions and growth. So there's a lot of different decisions our high school students are making. So it's up to us to make sure that we're supporting them and we're here for them and we're giving them the proper guidance in terms of as parents, in terms of being involved in their life. As educators, we aren't necessarily with them all the time. And it's important that at home they're receiving the much needed continuing conversations for a lot of these topics. Academic achievement and student success. Almost every study that I found in the literature review that I did for this presentation discussed how children with parental involvement, especially early on in life, had a much higher chance at graduating in terms of having an increased graduation rate. In addition, children ended up pursuing college more and being more serious about their future academic endeavors when parents were involved in the education portion of their life, not just the sports or religion or what have you, but also in that education piece of their life. And another big thing was just that the relationships built in conjunction with parental involvement in terms of education between, again, the parent and the child specifically, but also adding in that educator and that administrator into the mix. Really, all of those stakeholders in the child's life was absolutely enhanced for the better and for a positive when parental involvement was increased. Digital citizenship. One of the most important things that a parent can do for their child is explain the importance of what digital citizenship is. Internet access is more available to children earlier in life and throughout childhood. At the age that I am now, I don't think I had access to the internet until probably high school, if that. And now children are getting on the internet as early as 4 or 5, kindergarten age, right? So it's really important to go over what safe and secure best practices are, not giving out information to strangers online, not sending pictures of themselves or anything out there. And even at a high school level, just making sure that they understand that digital footprints last forever. As a business executive for 10 years in the community, one of the things we always did was we always used to research our our applicants to make sure that there wasn't anything negative out there in the internet in terms of them. And we found a lot of things and didn't offer positions based upon it. So again, it's important that when parents are having discussions with their children, that they're bestowing to them this knowledge that they need to be responsible in terms of what that digital footprint looks like. Student health, nutrition, stress, and sexual decision making. Each of these topics are very important for a child. And as they become older, it's more and more important to have these conversations, a continuum of conversations. Parents can influence their children to make the proper decisions later on in life and currently in life. Nutrition habits are formed early in life, so it's important to make sure that the child understands how to eat a balanced diet, how to eat properly, what are proper sources of nutrition. Support systems for students during difficult times are another thing where parent involvement can really excel. In terms of that, if a student is stressed or if there's a death in the family or a rough time at school, then by having parental involvement early on in life, in the child's life, we can end up having those conversations and making sure that the child is taken care of in terms of from a mental health point of view. And conversations in terms of sexual decision making can occur to prevent issues later in adolescence. So making sure that they understand in terms of what that commitment looks like and what's proper and not to in terms of that whole experience. Cognitive outcomes. Private tutoring efforts in one study were showed in terms of parental involvement to have an increase in terms of IQ scores and reading and writing math scores in terms of one study that I found in the literature review. Another important thing is to, once again, just consider what COVID-19 implications kind of look like for this. In many school systems, new material wasn't able to be taught after March 12th, so it's important to understand the state of mind of our students going into the fall and into the new year and making sure that we're preparing them not only so much to get them back on track, but just to once again prepare them and make sure they have every resource possible to be successful. To establish critical thinking skills, a lot of the times my students will just kind of look for an answer as opposed to what the path for the discovery looks like. So it's important that we teach our children and parents work with their children in terms of what critical thinking skills look like. And again, parental involvement is to act as supplement to traditional instruction. So again, as we are going through this pandemic and teaching is virtual for the moment, it's important that parents are involved in kind of supplementing that, but also once we do go back to a traditional classroom setting, that parents are just staying with and just becoming involved in the child's life still in terms of their academics and education. There are a few really important resources in terms of articles and tips that I think are very much value added for parents trying to become more involved in the life of a child in terms of their education. There's two different articles from one particular site. One is entitled 10 Ways Parental Involvement Improves School Performance, and the other is Parental Involvement is Key to Student Success. And then on an additional site, it discusses the enduring power of parental involvement. In terms of this website, Parent School Review, there are two different articles, like I said, in terms of 10 ways that parents can improve that school performance. And we'll take a look at each one of those here in just a second. All right, in the first article, it is the 10 ways parental involvement improves school performance. Here it really goes into depth in terms of, once again, having that positive an early start. There's a really good TED Talk here in terms of discussing it. Discusses higher attendance ratings, improved behavior, social skills. Again, just really some strong resources for parents that are looking to try to become more involved in their child's life in terms of their education. The second article, also from the Public School Review, talks about the parental involvement and how it is the key to student success. This website has a lot of really strong articles in terms of it. Again, talking about how academic achievement can increase when parents are involved in their child's life, how it can lead to better classroom behavior, all of these different really good points, and again, different videos on why parental involvement is so important in a child's life. The third article and website that I thought was very important comes from the National Education Association. So on this website, it discusses the importance of parental involvement and how during American Education Week, how they really strive to have a couple different events and what that looks like. So a couple of the things they really try to do is setting goals with children, fostering achievement of those goals, assessing child's academic scores to make sure they're on track, and again, just making sure that they're prepared. In conclusion, parental involvement typically improves the academic and character development success of the child. Again, there's a number of different resources at the end of this presentation, as well as discussed throughout this presentation, that link validity to that point. Parental involvement should vary based upon the age of the child and the child itself. Just because what works for Susie doesn't mean it works for Bobby. So making sure that you understand your child, and in some cases what the ethnicity and the culture of a family can vary in terms of why parental involvement is or isn't successful. Again, with COVID-19, it's very important that parental involvement increases to ensure that academic success is achievable, as well as students are able to return to the classroom very easily without any hindrances. And again, the relationships and those partnerships with educators, students, and parents become so much stronger when parental involvement in a child's education occur. This concludes my presentation. This presentation will be uploaded to live text as well as submitted via Blackboard. And here are the resources that were used in putting in this presentation, and resources for you as educators that you will be able to use in your classrooms to make sure that you're getting the proper parental involvement that you need. Thank you.